Hi guys, it's Alex McCann here from Manchester-based social media company Altrincham HQ, and we're here for episode 4 of the Social Conversation, the chat show where we talk about what has stood out on social media this week. And we've got 3 fantastic guests to us, and we're going to introduce each of them in turn. So first of all, we've got Anthony Josephson from Maskell and Josephson Opticians. Introduce yourself, Anthony.
Hi guys, I'm Anthony Josephson. I'm the owner of Maskell and Josephson Opticians on Regent Road. I've been based there for a little over 8 years, but the business has been based there for closer to 40 years.
A well-established business in Altrincham.
Well-established business, yeah.
Fantastic. And we've also got Helen Marshall from Learn Northwest.
Hi, so yeah, I'm from the Northwest, and we are an education consultancy and Ofsted registered tuition-based business. We're based in Altrincham, but we do cover the whole of the Northwest.
Dave, I noticed you've got an Oldham branch coming soon as well.
Yeah, Oldham and Saddleworth, yeah.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Chris from Grantees.
Hi, yes, so I'm Chris from Grantees Coffee House on Stamford New Road. We are coming up for our, I want to say 4th year now, but let's face it, does 2020 even count for anything? I'm pretty sure it's just deleted. So we're going to say we're coming up for our 3rd birthday, because I also scrapped my birthday last year, so I stayed at 34, and I turn 35 next year.
Yeah, it's been a very strange year, which we're going to get on to soon. I mean, it'll be 2 birthdays I've missed by the end of lockdown, and that's a bit crazy. So just as a little roundup, last week we had Johnny from Oxford Road Cafe, we had Kate from The Garden, and we had Alex from Hale Karate Club. It was our busiest event so far. So just remember, guys, if you're watching this and you know myself or any of the guys on screen, your likes, your comments, and your shares really do matter. It helps get the word out there, and it helps spread the word about these fantastic businesses. So obviously we're going to talk about the obvious talking point of the week, which was Boris's plan for reopening, which he announced yesterday. His roadmap, he's calling it, out of lockdown. And hopefully he's going to stick to his word, and we're going to have no more restrictions after the 21st of June. So I'm going to go round the room and find out what your thoughts are. So I'm going to start with yourself first of all, Helen. Obviously, you're the first thing. You've been doing a lot of training over Zoom, and education is the first thing that's coming out of lockdown, 8th of March. How do you feel about his plan yesterday?
I'm overjoyed, absolutely overjoyed. I'm a mum, so I've got children at home. I've been homeschooling, so that's come with its own challenges. And with regard to our business, it would just be lovely to be able to see the children in real life. So I have been teaching on Zoom, and we can do it. And because I know my children so well, I can just teach them on Zoom, and I've got that good relationship. But it's not the same as seeing people in real life, you know. And I think even though I can deliver on Zoom, it's just not the same. I want to be able to see the children and kind of get that face to face. So yeah, I want my children in, and I want to be seeing the children. That's definitely.
It's a thumbs up for you for education then at the moment. Yeah. And then we're going to go over to retail. So Anthony, you've been classed as essential retail, and obviously non-essential retail. Was it the 29th of March or was it April the 12th? It keeps getting mixed up with what? So what are your
12th, I think.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on the reopening plan and the schedule ahead of us?
I think everybody has to be sort of cautiously optimistic about all of this. Is that other than the 8th of March date, I think it would be a bit naive if we don't expect some of the other ones to be pushed back. But fingers crossed, all of those dates stay as they are. It's been long enough. My birthday is the 29th of March. My wedding anniversary is the 21st of June. So he's so far coinciding major events with my major events, which is really nice. And it would be really, really good to just have more people back in the town buying things that they don't actually need to buy, but rather just simply want to buy. Yeah. Obviously, everybody needs to buy glasses and everybody needs to buy coffee, but there's a lot of other things that people don't need to buy. And it'll be nice to have people milling around just for that purpose again.
Yeah, we can buy trinkets and we can buy everything that we can get on the internet as well. So that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Chris, you've obviously been open, but obviously when these restrictions lift, you can actually have people in Grantees rather than walking in with a mask and shooting off straight away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say that he mentioned, obviously, that glasses were essential and also coffee was. I like the fact that you said coffee was an essential product that you could buy, which I agree with. We need it to survive.
Yeah,
we've actually been quite adaptable as a business through this lockdown, and I think we've actually been, we kind of slipped through a closure gap of the hospitality where, you know, you've got your bars and restaurants that didn't really have much choice. Whereas coffee shops were already part of a takeaway trade. So we've been able to just fully switch our menu to just a takeaway focus. It's not really something out of the ordinary, I suppose, for the coffee industry. So it's been quite an easy adaptation. And we're very, very grateful that, you know, we've been able to survive as we have through this time. It's not what it was, but yeah, absolutely welcoming to a possibility of a better future. However, I'm not getting my hopes up just yet.
Yes, definitely.
The day when it comes.
Yeah, I think we're all, there's a lot of positivity last night, but I think we've got to be, as Anthony says, cautiously optimistic. Yeah. And I think it's going to be an interesting one to see. I'm desperate to fly away and have a holiday. I haven't stopped since this whole lockdown. So but there's no way I'm booking things until it's certain I'm not going to be locked up in a hotel near Manchester Airport on the return. So
Thomas Cook said that they had the busiest booking day of months yesterday because people just went, yeah, right, okay, let's just book everything, you know, let's just do
and a busy
booking
day leads to the busiest refund day. Yay!
Yeah, I think I saw it. It was something like bookings gone up by something ridiculous, like 666% based on normal. So definitely, the one thing that I've got to say about obviously Boris's roadmap plan is everyone was really excited last night. But I saw it on the last time we had a lockdown when it was like July the 4th, I think was the last release of lockdown. And what I want to say, businesses, we run a marketing company. There's lots of other marketing. There's lots of other roadmaps. I called it the spaghetti junction rather than one single roadmap. And I think there's so many areas people have got to focus on, whether it be staff and well-being, customer service training, content production, marketing plans. Don't just give the happy notice yesterday. Leave it until your opening day. And I saw lots of retailers do this. We're open on the day that you're open. You've got to tell people beforehand. So yeah, a spaghetti junction of roads leading to the unlockdown. So obviously we're going to go on to each of your talking points. And I think your first one, Anthony, is slightly related to lockdown. So tell us what you've seen on social this week. What's been your talking point?
Yeah, so this is sort of on a professional point of view as well. This is a fact, or I guess a statistic to do with kids, so sort of the age of 4 or 5 typically. Any kid that's that age that goes to a state school should have a basic eye screening test. And effectively all that involves is not a clinical test. It doesn't look at the health of the eyes. It pretty much just covers up one eye and goes, all right, can you see these pictures? And then covers up another eye and goes, can you see these pictures? And if there's a difference between what one eye can see and another eye can see, it sets alarm bells off. And then they basically just get a report that goes, the parents or the guardians get a report that goes, your child may have the signs of a lazy eye. They need to go and see an optician and get it checked out properly. So it's a fairly basic test, but the accuracy involved in it is pretty good. There are some false positives where kids get sent on without a problem, but it's better that than kids have these issues missed. And because of everything that's gone on with kids not being in school, these screeners obviously haven't been sent from house to house to house to house. There's no, I won't say there's no way of doing it digitally, there is, but there's no structure set up for it. So these kids therefore haven't had these tests done, and it means that even if they delay the tests by a year or two, at the age where the lazy eyes get picked up, it's going to be much harder to correct or to fix. So it's going to cause lifelong complications and compromises to these kids' eyes, or at least one of them, throughout their entire life, just because of the fact that services haven't been running as normal.
It's been a bit of a crazy year in terms of everything else that isn't COVID has been pretty much ignored. And it's
Absolutely.
like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're doing our charity campaign at the moment, Altrincham versus Cancer, and you might have seen 25% of donations have gone down to the Christie, and that's, you've got the eye system, you've got the Christie, you've got every single other illness, you've got kids' mental health. Isn't it pretty crazy that we just let everything else slide just for COVID?
Yeah, it seems like if you're not the one that's being directly affected by these illnesses or by these ailments, that everybody else has sort of almost forgotten about them.
Definitely. So, Helen, obviously you deal with lots of kids via Zoom. Are we going to have loads of eye issues because everyone's staring at the screen all day? And 2, are we going to have loads of mental health issues as well?
I've had to have glasses since lockdown. So I wear them when I'm teaching now because of the time on the screen. I actually, as a child, had astigmatism, which was picked up. So I now wear glasses because of the amount of screen time that I'm doing and kind of close computer work that I'm doing. And I think a lot of children have said the same, that they just need that kind of the break from just staring at the screen constantly. And so when I'm teaching, I do say, like, after this, go and just do something that's not screen related, you know, even if that's just going outside or going and just sitting in the lounge or something, but just get away from that kind of the blue light. And I think about the mental health, yeah, that is something as a parent and a teacher, it is something that's concerning me. And I think needs to be at the forefront when we get the children back into school, to make sure that we're really putting that and putting some funding, putting some care behind making sure that our young children, young adults are looked after.
Yeah, I mean, Helen's got a very good point there in terms of the breaks. There were some interesting statistics that were released again towards the end of last year, more so from China, because their lockdown started earlier and finished earlier than we. So between sort of January and March time last year, the amount of young children that became short-sighted shot up by something like 30% as a result of the fact that they're now looking at things 1 or 2 feet away as opposed to 10, 20, 30 feet away. So there's products that are now targeting these people to try and slow down the short-sightedness, because with it, you risk losing your sight when you get a lot older. So this is a conversation for a completely different day. But Helen's right, is that the critical thing is to take breaks from screens, and it's different and it's difficult if everything that you do is stuck on that screen.
Definitely. I think the reason I wear glasses now is because the amount of time I spare staring at a phone or staring at a computer screen. So the other thing, Chris, are we going to have coffee addiction centres set up after lockdown? Because that's all people are doing now.
You know, honestly, I mean, I was saying to people, obviously in the hospitality industry, you know, you've got a lot of people that work within bars and restaurants and are very used to a body clock that works late nights. I mean, I come from a bar and restaurant background, and my body clock has always been wired to be very active at nighttime. Now, luckily, over my years of coffee shops, I'm slowly adjusting to early mornings. But not without the help of coffee. But I do worry about the people in hospitality industry that as soon as they go back from what has been a bit of a set routine of a body clock, I think they're going to really struggle. I mean, if you imagine if you've been, you know, got your body clock used to going to bed at like 10 o'clock at night, to then go back to a nightclub working till 4 o'clock in the morning, you're going to need either alcohol or caffeine to get you through that. You know, it's going to be really, really tough. And I think that will also affect people's mental health. So, you know, I think it's going to be a really, really tough time getting, you know, the country back up and running. But I suppose across all industries, when you've been sat around, you know, look at us all, even just after the Christmas break, you know, you struggle to go back to work, never mind having, you know, nearly 13 months off work. Yeah. I've got a friend that's a restaurant manager, and in the last 12 months, he's worked 8 weeks of work. Now, when you're used to working 50, 60 hours a week and running around on your feet to then being sat at home and not allowed to leave your house, it's a real struggle. But to just expect to go back to a restaurant environment where it's hustle, bustle, busy, turning tables, just like that, it's not going to be good on people's mental health. It's going to be a struggle. And same for kids, you know, I mean, kids have been deprived of so much social interaction that's really important for their characteristics and growth as human beings. So it's not good that they've missed out on such a large, important section of their life. So I do think it's important they get back to it massively and get away from screens, definitely.
Definitely. So, I mean, we could talk, there's more talking points we're going to be talking about on lockdown later on, but I mean, we're going to go from, Chris has just mentioned kids. So your next talking point, Anthony, I know I'm jesting here, but your next talking point's related to kids, isn't it? Animation.
Yeah. Don't say kids and animation. I'm one of these people that will fight people who I don't know when they go, "Oh, I don't watch that film. It's for kids," and it's not. Animation is a genre. It's not. It's not for kids. Anyway, a little note about me is that when it came to filling out my university application, which is 16, 17 years ago now, I put five universities down for optometry and one university, which was UCLan, for animation, because animation is something that I'm still very passionate about. And the main thing that sort of wanted me to go to the University of Central Lancashire is that at that time the animation course was part run by Nick Park from Aardman Animations, and so I'm a massive stop-start animation nerd. and there's been a lot of stuff going on social media with an Irish guy who lives in California who's done some special effects things, and that links in with another account that I follow on social media, who's a guy who specializes in stop-start animation. So it's all obviously it's special effects videos with a lot of his stop-start animation. So it's things that make him look like he's falling off a table in a box, when in fact it's obviously not stepping into a box on a table. And they're far better to watch than it is for me to describe. So if Alex doesn't put the link into any of the feeds attached to this video, then find me and I'll share some stuff with you.
Definitely, when it goes live, definitely share it in the comments section. So, do any of you guys, Helen, Chris, do you watch anything animated, or is it not? Is it for kids for you guys?
No. I've watched them all. I love an animated movie. Yeah, the Disney Plus is something that we subscribed to during lockdown. Like at the first lockdown, I was like, we definitely just need Disney Plus. And my husband was like, really? Do we really need it? I was like, no, we definitely need it. Like the children need a good Disney education. As far as I'm concerned, they're my favorites.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately I'm not that involved in animation. I do like the odd animation film, but I struggle to watch TV most of the time, to be honest. So getting the privilege of watching animation films is not much of a privilege of my life. But I think I'm frowned upon a lot by my friends because I'm one of the only people in the world that possibly didn't cry in the first 5 minutes of Up.
Alex,
Is it
too late to kick Chris out? I think you need to find another fourth person for this group now. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite.
Did you cry?
Do you know what? I've not watched it. The one that I nearly cried on, I say nearly, Soul, which is on Disney Plus.
I've not
I think
seen
I'm the only
that.
person that didn't like it. Everyone raved about it on social media, and I was like, yes, brilliant. I just couldn't. I just didn't get it. I just wasn't for me at all. No.
I think Disney, especially Pixar, they've done a lot of films over the last 10 years, which are more pieces of art than films. WALL-E is a great example of that, when there's barely any dialogue in the whole film. Is you don't go into it watching a film, you go and watch a piece of art, and they're really, really good at doing that.
Yeah, I'm more of a musical, Little Mermaids, Lion King kind of person, really.
All good.
Oh, fantastic. So if you want any recommendations for animation, stop animation films, and you also want a pair of glasses, definitely go and chat to Anthony about all of this. So we're going to move on to the next talking point. It's one of mine. I saw a post on LinkedIn, and it was, do you put your qualifications after your name? And it raised a sort of point for me in that, is it important that someone is qualified? And if you are qualified, should you shout about it? Because I don't think when we're British, we shout about things. We don't, if you're American, you would make sure every single person in the world knew about it. And I'm like, I don't shout about the fact that I studied marketing for 5 years, I'm qualified, I've got 20 years experience. And I think that's just the British thing in you. You underplay everything you do. And I just wanted to raise that point. It was one thing that got me thinking that maybe I should shout about it more. And obviously the obvious person we're going to start with on this one is Helen. So obviously you're a tutoring firm, so I take it you're very pro qualification. We
are, and it's surprising really, because when you go to the doctors or you go and see a nurse or the dentist, you just presume that they're qualified. You wouldn't think, oh, if you've got qualifications to treat me, you wouldn't presume that. And that's because they are, and it's because they've got a regulatory body that help to look after and to set standards. However, with tuition, there is no body for that. There's no regulations, or anybody can be a tutor. And in some companies, they're employing like school leavers, university students. If they've just got a degree in a subject, they can do it. I've got a GCSE in science, but it doesn't mean that I'm a science teacher. And that's something that I think we're really passionate about, that we make sure that people understand that we are all qualified teachers and that we hold the right qualifications to the children that we're teaching. But also from a safety point of view as well, because we've got certain standards, policies and procedures that we need to withhold with regards to like safeguarding and making sure that we are keeping our children safe. That sometimes if you aren't a qualified teacher, you're not going to have those. And I think our worry is that parents could potentially be sending their children to unregulated businesses where, you don't know who who they are or what qualifications they hold. So yeah, it's something that we do shout about. I don't put the letters after my name, but yeah, it is something that we are really, really passionate about, and it's kind of underpinned the foundation of our business.
And Anthony, can I just set up Baltimore HQ Opticians and run a business?
If you use the word optometrists in there, then you're using a protected term. So theoretically, no, you'd be shut. Well, if somebody found out, you'd be shut down and fined. So I'll be keeping my eye out for Altrincham HQ Opticians now, so that I can shut you down when you're doing that and treading on my territory. So simple answer, no.
No, and Chris, I just want to take it from another perspective. Obviously, you run a coffee shop. You've probably been approached by 20 million service providers to say, we can help you with our business. We can help you grow, blah, blah, blah. When someone comes to you and says that, does it matter to you if they're qualified? Why? How do you decide to buy from someone?
And you're absolutely right. We get, 101 people come through the door, and they're all trying to sell you card readers and better services and, fire extinguisher servicing and aircon or whatever it is. But I think Helen's right. When you come down to certain services, you kind of just rely on their employment and just go, right, well, if you're, not that you'd employ a doctor, but for example, if you're going to a doctor, you just expect that they are qualified, they know what they're doing, you have faith in some system out there that, that structures that job role. But it's a little bit different when you're being approached by different companies sort of face to face. They're not necessarily always coming to try and sell you their qualification. A lot of the time they'll go off, we're number one of this, where we have this many customers, we have this footfall, etc. And unless you really do your research into that company, you really sort of rely on that. Other than that, you have to put the legwork in and do a little bit of review searching, Googling and finding that out. But Helen, I've got a little bit of a confession to make, and you're probably gonna bury your head at this, but before I was self-employed and I was in the world of employment, and when I used to go out applying for jobs, I actually lied about my GCSE results because they weren't great. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the thing is, like, if you're lying about a GCSE result, obviously, but if you need that for that job, then I think that's a bit of a sticky situation. But, I think it's about, like, I don't know. I think that you've just got to be like, it's got to be relevant. It's got to be relevant. Go on.
I didn't say I was an optician or a doctor.
There you go.
I just said I could spell, which I can't.
Well, there you go.
I think that Helen's sort of touching on how I feel is I think when people have like 1,000 different letters after their name and 75 different qualifications and things, but only one of them is relevant to the field that they're pitching. That's the one I want to know about. I don't need to know about everything else that you've done. I don't need to know that you've got a PADI license and that you're a qualified scuba diver. Is that what I'm interested in knowing is are you capable, qualified in doing what I'm interested in, and obviously then testimonials and stuff like that in terms of knowing that the results are speak for themselves as well.
Yeah, there's so many different variables. I think we've just discussed, as you said, testimonials, results, case studies, social media presence, everything that you do, it can all match into it. I think the reason it stuck out for me is there's so many unqualified marketers and so many unqualified social media people. Literally a mum who spends the time on Facebook for 4 hours a day suddenly decides to launch a business. So I think that's why it stuck out for me when I saw it on LinkedIn.
Jumping on that, Alex, I think through the lockdowns, I've never seen so many people all of a sudden become qualified personal trainers. They're everywhere. Everyone all of a sudden on Instagram is James Smith, PT.
Yeah.
Why is everyone now a personal trainer? What's going on?
I think we're going to see loads of PTs, we're going to see loads of business coaches, and frustratingly, we're going to see loads of people selling Juice Plus, aloe vera, utility warehouse, and all that kind of stuff. It's a sort of, I saw it in the last recession. It happened then, it's going to happen now. So my next talking point partly references what Chris said before about the hospitality industry, and it references the sort of businesses that I work with, the self-employed and so on. So toxic hustle culture. So there was a post on LinkedIn where someone had heard someone speak on Clubhouse, which is a new social media app. It's voice first. And there was a conversation where a coach said they'd been coaching 11 people in one day. And it made me think about like the whole toxic hustle culture in that, oh yeah, you've got to work 24 hours a day, you've got to have 3 hours sleep. If you're not doing all that, you're not a proper business person. And that kind of is like, hospitality is really hard pushed, isn't it? You have to put the hours in, don't you?
Yeah, you do. It's not as easy as what people think as well. It's actually quite a long hours and a tough industry, really. But I think when you're referring to things like, the guy that's boasting about teaching 11 people in a day, sometimes it's more about quality rather than quantity.
Definitely. And Helen, I go into my old primary school about once a year, and they call it an angel. Officially, it's a dragon's den, but you can't call them dragons, I guess, in primary school. And I go in and I do a dragon's den style thing, which is teaching kids about business. And initially, when I sort of heard of that, I was like, okay, that's interesting. It's like, part of it's like, yeah, good thing, generation of entrepreneurs. And partly it's like, let kids be kids. So what's your thoughts on, like, should kids just be able to do PE and play around and do the fun stuff? Or should they have serious subjects and be more adult-like?
I think it needs to be age appropriate, but I think we need the balance. So I think too much down the academic route, the English and maths, and we're going to lose those creative subjects and the humanities subjects. But if we just go, oh, let's just kids be kids and let them roam fields and be free, then they're going to have no academic standards. So I think we need to find that balance, but it needs to be age appropriate. So that needs to be something that they can enjoy. And it's where we've got that whole curriculum in primary school where, we look and we teach everything. My little boy's just doing a whole topic on the Beatles at the minute, because it's really important that he knows about the history of our local area, So I think it's really important, but also that it's, because not every child is going to be the English and math, the academic, and that's, it's about, for me as a teacher, it's about finding what is going to, where your child is going to flourish and pulling that from them. And that for some children isn't that kind of straight academic route.
And Anthony, you run your own business. It's your business. If you don't work, no money comes in the till. So how do you cope with that balance between trying to live a personal life and trying to grow a business?
I mean, sort of with compliments to the rest of my team is that I am in the situation where I can not work and money still comes in the till. It is significantly less, but it's enough to keep the business going. So I took over the business knowing full well that I'd still be able to have a life outside of the business. So, back in days when you could go on holiday and do stuff like that, I knew full well that I could take a good 5 weeks, 6 weeks off a year and go on holiday. I knew that I could have a family and take time off to spend it with them, and yet the business would still run. And obviously I could work those extra 6 weeks. I could work 6 days a week, 7 days a week, whereas I generally do 4 or 5 at most. And yeah, the business would make more money, and yes, the bank managers would be happier, but it is getting that right balance, is that I'm much happier and I'm much healthier working long hours 4 days a week than I am working 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. So as you said, it's a well-established business. My team are brilliant. They know what to do when I'm not there.
Getting that balance right, isn't it? It's like there's on one side there's hustle culture, and then on the one side there's those sort of what I call work at home scams, where it's sort of, you can work 4 hours a day, then sit on the beach for the never 9 months of the year. And
that's what we lost in the first lockdown, is that when we went into lockdown last year, is that part of me thought, okay, it's not the end of the world. I've got more time to do jobs around the house. But then we stayed open, but all of my team were at that point on furlough during the first lockdown. So I was working longer hours, 6 days a week. And then on the 7th day week, making everything sort of COVID compliant for when we could reopen. So it was horrendous, as I was absolutely cripplingly exhausted from working longer than I would normally have ever chosen to.
Yeah, I think that there's been that thing in lockdown where, as you said, there's been some people on furlough who've not worked. As Chris said, his friend who'd worked 8 weeks out of the last few months, and then there's been other people that haven't stopped, which is insane. I'm one of those people. It's crazy. So and everyone on this just work non-stop, and then we're doing the extra stuff like recording videos and radio shows and all the things that we do on top of our work. So we're going to move on to Helen now. What stood out for you on social media?
So there's a story of twin girls down in Milton Keynes, and they've been doing their lockdown. During the lockdown, they've been homeschooled by their parents, and they've been playing out in the garden, and they started to write stories. And instead of doing the kind of traditional lessons either on Zoom or the worksheets that the teachers had set, they actually started to write stories, and the parents had kind of helped them to develop these stories to the point where they've been able to publish their own book, all about little creatures that they found in their gardens, and write stories. And they're doing it to raise money for muscular dystrophy, which is something that their dad suffers with. So I just thought it was such a wonderful story, and something where they thought, do you know what, we're going to come away from the kind of the set worksheets and the set work that they're going to do that maybe isn't kind of igniting them and isn't something that they want to do, and they're going to go and not only write stories on their own, but get to the point where they can self-publish as well. And I just think that was just brilliant. And I wanted to talk about that kind of self-publishing and whether anyone had done it or thought about it, because we had a student do it last year. She was actually in year 11, and she self-published a book, and it's available to buy on Amazon. And I just think it's amazing at that age that you can do that and have that platform to be able to do that.
I love stories like that, when sort of it's kind of heartwarming, it's amazing, it's inspirational when someone of that age has to get up and go, obviously with the help of the parents, to go and do something like this. But it's amazing. I've never done anything like self-publishing. I blog all the time, but I've never thought of turning my blogs into a book. Have you guys at all? Have you got a book in you?
I have a book that's hopefully being published later this year, but it's not professional related. It's a little kiddie poem storybook, which I mean, I looked at self-publishing, but it is really difficult. It's incredibly difficult to do it. It's incredibly difficult to know how to do it. So I took the approach of, I'm going to try and find a professional publisher who's willing to do it or not do it at all. And fortunately, I managed to find a couple of publishers that were game to do it.
You do say everyone's got a book in them. Have you got a book in you, Chris?
I think we've already addressed I can't spell. And
picture book.
If it was consistent with drawing pictures and making coffee, I'd probably do pretty well.
You could have a coffee book. You could have something relating to coffee shops, and obviously the whole story of Gran Teas and how you set it up. There's a story in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a good story there.
I'm sure there's some sort of. I do actually read a lot of business books from different authors and different business people. So I'm sure maybe that a lot of people could relate to my my story and my building of my business in the brand in some way. So not sure if it just interests me in writing it. I think I prefer reading about other people's stories than writing.
A lot of books are.
The what? Sorry.
I was just going to say, a lot of books, if you said you can't do the writing, a lot of books are ghostwriters. So you just get a ghostwriter to interview you and then write it for you.
Okay. What are you doing for the next 6 months?
But no, that's a really good story, Helen. It was really, as I said, really inspirational when you see it. I think there's so many kids doing stuff. We just did all the stuff that kids do, but now you see like teenagers and young kids producing content or producing books.
It's amazing. Yeah,
definitely. So what else have you seen this week as well?
A little bit more lighthearted. I saw that Apple have now added more emojis to their iPhone uses, so that there's more inclusive ones. So they show like same-sex relationships. They also show a COVID vaccine as well. So, and there's a coffin emoji as well. So I love the emojis, and I love when they've got new ones, and I love that they're just trying to kind of be more inclusive. So I suppose my question was, what was your most used emoji? You know, when you press the text, like what's your most used one?
I'm going to pass it to you guys, because you know what? I work in social media, but emojis really annoy the hell out of me. I'm like, I can't think what to put. I just like, words are easier to me than going, what's the right emoji?
I think two of mine are either the smiley face with the sort of love hearts around it. It's kind of like that one, or the hand prayer one. Yeah. As in, I put that a lot when I'm sort of thankful to people, or just actually for the last year I've been thankful for a lot of things. So that kind of went out a lot.
Somebody told me that wasn't a prayer, that was a high five.
That's definitely a prayer.
Maybe
definitely a prayer.
Somebody said that maybe it's a high five.
And I'm okay. I mean, I
didn't know either.
I think it's a prayer, that one.
We need to ask the kids. Where's
Yeah,
the kids?
I use it as a prayer, like thanks. Yeah, I would use it as a prayer. Yeah.
The thing is, this is again, I think why I get confused with emojis. There was a study done recently on emojis, and it was a study on, do you know, like the one I probably use more than any of it is like the tears of joy, the tears of laughter one. And apparently, if you use that, it makes you a boomer. If you use a tears of joy emoji, it makes you a boomer. Whereas young people, young cool people, use the skull and crossbones one because it means what's it mean? Rolling on the floor, dying, or something like that. It means something like that, dying laughing, or something like that.
Right.
And
I
it's
don't know
like
what it says about me. I don't even know which one you're talking about now.
So do you not use them?
I do use some emojis, but I only use like 3 or 4. I've got absolutely no idea what this cool young hipster one is that you're talking about.
Dying laughing, I think it means. That's what it means. Skull and crossbones, dying laughing.
Let's face it, the kids of today have totally different meanings for these emojis. So we use them for one thing, and then the kids just have a totally different context for what they're actually, what they actually are. So we're probably not even using them in the right way anymore.
Yeah, we can't even use emojis properly. We're doing it all wrong.
Because there's these new ones that you mentioned, Helen. Wasn't there something like 260 new emojis?
Yeah, there's loads.
Which
I don't know how they can think of that many.
Is it 260 new ones, or is it like 50 new? Let's say 3 new ones with 50 different shades of skin, and then a few extra ones thrown in.
Yeah, I think they've got variants. But
Yeah.
imagine that was your job to create new emojis. Imagine that you worked for Apple and your job was to sit and draw new emojis. Like I love that.
A few years ago, it was people started joking about it. It started trending on Twitter because there was an emoji translator or something. That was his job title on BBC Breakfast News, and everyone's like, "What? That's a real job?" It was crazy. But yeah, I think we've all established we're way too old to use emojis, and we'll leave that to the kids and just use our old-fashioned boomer emojis. I think we'll have to do that.
Or just words, yeah.
Yeah, words. That's easier. I don't need to think about the words.
I'm not even using words anymore. I'm starting to get into voice noting, so I literally just can't even be bothered to type anymore. Yeah. I'm just like, hold the button, say what I want to say, send it. But I don't want to go to the level of a phone conversation because then it means an instant response. I just like to send it and I'll get back to you later.
Yeah, that's me.
I think it's just easier if you just don't bother talking to people. It's much easier that way.
Like that.
It is weird the way we've changed communications. Like, I don't like phone calls either. I don't like a phone. If you can avoid a phone call, I will. But then there's the other people that obviously going, oh, I don't want to do a phone call. Can you jump on Zoom? And it's like, okay, it takes me 10 minutes to set up the Zoom link, and then you want to get everyone on, and then everyone's saying I'm on mute and all that, and it's just like weird the way people are communicating. So we're going to go on to the next point because we've still got quite a few topics to cover in the next sort of 15 minutes. What should we go? Actually, I'm going to go straight to you, Chris. I think we'll leave mine to the end. What you've seen on social media?
Well, I mean, to be honest, what I was going to talk about was the massive uplifting in the UK staycation bookings for this year. Now, however, somebody did mention it briefly earlier that as of the announcement yesterday, this is now transferred into holiday bookings abroad. So that actually hit the headlines this morning. But I'm actually quite lucky. I have a holiday apartment on the East Coast here in Britain. And I rent it out as a holiday apartment, and I've seen some really good bookings coming through for this year, and hopefully it will be a very good year for UK staycations this year, and it'll claw back a little bit of the losses for last year. But it was more like in a kind of question of, yeah, Alex, you said you can't wait to jump on a plane and go away to the sun. But would you be happy, if the options were for the next 12 months, would you be happy to do a UK staycation? Is that an appeal to you?
We've been discussing it. I think a few of you either see on Twitter or know my best friend Mark. We've been discussing where we sort of go on holiday this year, and if we can. And I think the first point was we can probably get away for a week or a 5-day trip before we're allowed to fly. So we're kind of thinking, should we do Anglesey? Should we do the South Coast?
Yeah.
But then you've got the whole thing you mentioned. The reason I like flying away is because you're almost guaranteed sun. Whereas you could book 5 days in England and have 5 days worth of rain. And I'm like, that's the risk. And it's quite pricey to go down to Cornwall. You could almost go abroad for the same price.
You're absolutely right. But with obviously these new isolation hotels now, where you've got to pay, you know, £1,700 as soon as you land back in the UK to isolate in a hotel, that's now totally flipped the situation. Where, you know, who can actually afford to go abroad this year?
I mean, when are those being released? Is that on June the 21st that horrible thing stops, or is Boris going to say no? That's for the whole bloody year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any announcements about that. Is there? Because
got forced this week, and then I don't think there's been an end date announced for that. Now it is only for I think 33 countries at the moment. Yeah. But so there are still some places you can go to without having to isolate when you come back, but it has like severely reduced the options. So I think UK staycations are still going to be a good thing. But I found it really weird last year with the whole pandemic that actually it almost, no conspiracy theory here, but we saw a massive reset in the weather. I've never seen 3 months of a dry summer. I can't remember the last time I saw snow that close to Christmas. And, you know, it's almost the weather reset itself. And hopefully that will roll into this year as well, where we have sun in the summer and you know, I don't mind snow at Christmas. That's cool. But let's just have 3 months of dryness, please.
Yeah, because then we can have our British holidays and obviously on the East Coast or Wales. Are you guys planning to go away if you can?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We didn't go away really in 2019 because we had a baby, so we had 3 things booked in 2020, and they obviously all got cancelled gradually as the year went on. We managed to sneak away for a week in Cornwall in October, just before actually during when the tier system was introduced. If we went 3 days later, we'd have got turned away when we got there. And so we've not booked anything because we don't know whether it will be local, other side of the country, on a plane. So we're going away, but it's just a case of waiting and seeing, because even at the moment, obviously you can't travel across the country, and if Boris's plans don't go to plan, is that we're not booking somewhere for June time in Cornwall to then find out that we can't go to Cornwall in June.
Yeah.
And Helen, yourself?
Well, I've got 4 young children, so we've had 8 years of wet weeks in Wales. Every year we have a rainy, miserable week in Wales, and this year we decided that we were going to brave it and take the 4 children on an aeroplane, and we've booked to go to Portugal at the beginning of June. So hopefully,
fingers crossed for
but
you.
if it turns out to be another wet week in Wales, at least I'm kind of prepared for it, and I've got the wellies.
Well, I think we're doing.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, you might get as far as the border if Wales decide to close.
It basically just starts raining as we get to Wales normally. Like as we get there, like.
But even Wales is international travel by current standards, so yeah.
It is.
I think Knutsford was international travel at one stage, going across the Manchester to Cheshire border.
In the tiers,
So we can basically stay in the confines of Altrincham. And we can't go past the Cresta Court, or we can't go past Oxford Road Cafe. We've got to stay in that little bubble. That's what.
And for anyone watching this outside of Altrincham who wants a staycation, come into Altrincham. It's a great place to visit.
Yes, we've got more than a market as well, just to let you know, guys. So what else have you seen this week, Chris?
So I think, you know, I know you've actually been watching this. I've seen it on your social media, but it's about the program It's a Sin that has been a really huge. I don't know if it's just been such a big topic recently because there's been no new television actually made this year, but it has hit a lot of headlines. It's had really, really good ratings on. Is it Channel 4, E4?
Channel 4, yeah.
Channel
4. So, you know, it's really sort of broke some boundaries on that, but it's also been streamed on Netflix. Now, Netflix have been snubbed quite a lot because they're kind of dominating TV world at the moment, and they're taking everything. They're even taking movies this year, aren't they? So because movies couldn't go to the cinema world. But I think it's been a really good balance that you've been able to either watch it on terrestrial TV and sort of follow it week by week and allow that suspense and hunger to watch it to carry on, or you've been able to just, like I did, binge it in one week. on Netflix TV. So it's great that they've sort of catered to different generations, different people's needs. And I think it's run a really good balance.
Is it on UK? Is it on UK Netflix?
No, it's not Netflix. It's
Oh, sorry.
All 4. It's All 4, which is
Sorry.
their Channel
Yeah.
4
Because
streaming.
I was going to say I've been watching. I've
Oh
got
my
one
God.
episode left. I've been watching it on All 4. I thought
Yeah,
Chris had just
no,
given me a way
it's
to
All
get rid of the
4.
adverts.
Sorry, yes, it's on All 4. Yes, yeah, but it's great that you can either binge it or you can follow it week by week and allow the suspense to carry on.
Yeah, it's one of the few shows. There aren't many these days, but it's one of the few shows where people have been watching it week by week. And if you wanted to wait until it's finished to sort of binge it, then you've got to try and avoid social media at the right times to dodge spoilers.
Yeah, no, I think that's the great thing. I think when terrestrial TV invests in a show and invest in a storyteller like Russell T Davies, virtually everything he touches is gold. And when you invest it, you do watch it. It's like it becomes event TV. I was one of the ones that did watch it week by week until the 4th episode, when I thought, stuff it, I'm going to watch the 5th episode because I need to finish this. And it was like a moment. You watched it on the moment, and in the TV breaks, you then looked at Twitter and saw what other people were saying about it. And it was, I think I love TV like that because I think terrestrial TV, we've all grown up with it. And I love that side of things. And when it's done well, that people still watch it rather than have to go to Netflix. Did you watch it, Helen?
No, I didn't, but I do. There's only certain programs that I would watch weekly, you know, like The Apprentice, for example. If you don't watch that when it's on, social media ruins it now, doesn't it? You know, and I think like the Bake Off, like I knew who'd won the Bake Off before I'd managed to sit down and watch it. And there is something really special about, well, it's on at 7 o'clock, so you've got to sit at 7 o'clock and watch it, because I don't do that anymore. And I think because I don't do it, I don't watch it. I know it's something I'm going to watch and it's something I will get round to doing, but haven't done yet because it's not like I've got to sit down and commit to it.
I think the good thing about this kind of program is, though, that even with the leaks on social media, it was more a case of, oh, that was really emotional, or that was really good. Nobody really leaked the information about the show or kind of what happened. So unlike The Apprentice, where you go, oh, Jenny won, like it didn't spoil it for
Well, I'm
you.
not going to watch The Apprentice now. I know that Jenny wins. So there you go.
I don't even know who Jenny is. Yeah, it was good that even with social media, you could still follow it through, but seeing everybody else's reactions to it.
I've seen lots of crying face emojis with the big fat tears coming out.
Well, you wouldn't expect anything different from that show, would you?
No, it was very
just high-fiving himself.
Yeah, roller coaster of emotions, I think it was, wasn't it? It was like really funny moments in there, and obviously then every single episode had a heartbreaking moment, and I think that's
real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a real good education as well, because you know, even growing up in the 80s, I don't think I realized that that's how judged, you know, that community was. And I am an open gay person, and I haven't had to suffer any of those criticisms or, you know, any of those. I've not had to have that fear as a human being. You know, we're so privileged these days with an NHS that, you know, you have so much access to so many drugs. We are so privileged as a country, and given so, even with the vaccine for COVID, you know, we're one of the first countries in the world to have light at the end of a tunnel. Some countries haven't even seen a single jab, and it's not cost me anymore. You know, I pay my taxes, and I think we're so privileged in a way. But I think it relates to that because there are some sort of similarities in stories, the stresses, the pressures as humans, not so much on one community, but actually as a country now, and the fear as a country. But yeah, it was a real educational eye-opener for so many reasons, but also to make people aware.
Yeah, people are talking about it. I haven't watched it, but I'm talking about it, and I think that's a really important thing that we're talking about, the issues and things like that. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I first met Russell. I used to be a journalist before this, and Russell T Davies was one of the first people I ever interviewed. It was when he was in between the first series of Queer as Folk and when he did that little special at the end of it. He did a 1.5 hour special, and I was down there at the film and I interviewed him, and it was like, those two were TV landmarks, Queer as Folk and It's a Sin have been like TV landmarks. And as you said, Chris, it's like he said in a podcast, listen to him on a podcast interview, he said there were a lot of similarities between what happened in the early 80s and what's happening now, except those days it didn't have the internet. So it was all like gossip and hearsay and conspiracy theories in real life. And then obviously nowadays it's Facebook huns and Twitter warriors and that kind of thing. A lot of similarities.
It was kind of funny because there's a scene where I can't remember his name, the singer from Years and Years. What was his name?
Oh, I can't remember. He's Ollie in real life, but I can't remember his name
Ollie.
in the show.
We'll call him Ollie. So he walks into a pub and he's literally, you know, throwing all of this. It's conspiracy theories from the government. It's scaremongering. It's this, it's that, and the other. And I thought, I have heard that every day about COVID in the coffee shop. And I'm like, oh my Lord, if the government wanted to kill you, they would have found a way by now. Like, they're not gonna create COVID and then wipe you out. Like, just take the vaccine.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, what we're going to do, it's been fantastic. Just for we're going to do a quick fire round. So we're going to go around all the questions that I had, and I want one-line answers off each of you for each of these ones. So it's going to be really quick, really condensed answers. So a few talking points I saw. Prince Charles obviously went to visit his dad, and hopefully nothing serious has happened in the last hour by the time we've been recording. But there was a reaction on Twitter to him visiting his dad and the fact that obviously some people hadn't been able to visit their loved ones in hospital. Quick one-liners on your thoughts. Is it a representation of human beings on the way that they rant on Twitter? Anthony's probably the most prolific Twitter user, so we're going to start with you.
I don't like human beings. That pretty much sums it up. Is no, social media brings out the best of people and it brings out the worst of people. Is that people latch on to the fact that hospitals were told that relatives can visit under exceptional circumstances. So you interpret the exceptional circumstances as you will. Is it because he's royalty or is it because his dad's on his way out?
I like the start to your answer there, Anthony. It's very sort of David Mitchell. I hate humans. I like that. And Helen, one-line answer.
I think it shows potentially how poorly Prince Philip is if the family have been called to visit. I think we need to just back off and not attack him if, you know, his dad is as poorly as potentially he is. Yeah,
definitely. And Chris?
Yeah, just reinforcing, you know, what they've both just said there. Unless you know the details, then you don't know. So I don't think anybody should judge.
Definitely. So yeah, don't judge. That's the answer from that one. The next thing that I saw, this is always a debate, and you've all probably seen this on social media, that annoying thing about the high street and people living in the past and continuing going, I want Woolies and the pick and mix and stuff like that. And there's one comment that really amused me on our Facebook page this week. It was when I can't remember what it was, whether it's a Lidl in Altair or whether it was something else, but someone said about Altrincham, they won't settle till Alti becomes another rush home, just because I think a restaurant was opening. And I was like, we've hardly got the Curry Mile in Altrincham, have we? We've got a lot of restaurants, but it's not the Curry Mile. So your one line on the high street and where it goes in the next 10 years. We'll start with you, Chris.
I mean, the high street is massively changing. I mean, it was pre-COVID and, you know, it's going to change massively after COVID. But Altrincham, I think the little negatives of social media, the people that want to sort of put that kind of negative opinion forward, I think if you want Altrincham to go back to how it was 5-6 years ago, all boarded up, or you can have the option of, you know, businesses and options on your doorstep. Why is it affecting you? Just run with it.
People just like to moan. Anthony, you're next on the high street.
The high street changes according to the demands of the people around it. It is as simple as that. Is that ignoring the whole pandemic, where obviously a lot of businesses have struggled, is that prior to that, places like Woolworth have closed because they can't compete with the internet and they don't have a position anymore. So it's up to businesses to make themselves known and to offer something that others can't.
Yeah.
Helen?
I love that Altrincham is becoming so foodie and there's so many restaurants. And, you know, for someone that loves food and loves local restaurants, the fact that we've got them all on our doorstep, then yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Definitely. If Altrincham does want to turn into the Curry Mile, I'll be quite happy if George Street is just like a Curry Mile. So from Anthony's shop down to Flannels, we can have curry house after curry house after curry house. And the last thing I'm going to touch on, this is going to get a bit deep actually for one line. There was an interview I saw with the ex-Manchester United football player, Rabble Morris, and I'm not sure whether you've heard of him. He's been through about 11 clubs. in his only 27 years old. He's a bit of a bad boy. But one of his quotes, there was a quote that he said, and he goes, if I could go back in time, I would change 90% of my life. So it's a bit of a tearful moment, this one. And it can be big or small. So if you could change one thing in your life, what would it be? And we'll start with yourself, Helen, first of all. One thing, big or small.
And it can't be COVID.
That one. I think I would stop worrying so much. When I was younger, I would stop worrying so much about the future, about what people thought, about what I was going to do, how my life was going to pan out, where I was going to live, all those big future decisions. And I think I would just trust the process more and just trust that it's going to happen. I think I spent a long time worrying about what if this, what if this, what if this. And I think I've just kind of, as I've got older now, just been able to go, do you know what, what will be, and just let that kind of, go with the flow a bit more. So I think that would probably be my take.
Worry less. That's good.
Yeah,
one.
worry less.
And Chris, what's yours?
Do you know what, I've got to say, in a sort of non-arrogant way, I don't actually regret that much in life. I'm actually very thankful for all the good and the bad in my life. And I believe that it's made me the person I am today through those experiences. So I am very grateful for every inch of it. But I did make quite a bold move to leave the small town when I was about 26 years old, and I moved to the big city. And I do kind of wish I'd done that a little bit sooner in my life. I feel that I've developed a lot more, a lot faster as a person. I've had to stand on my own 2 feet a lot more. It's been a great little adventure. So I wouldn't say I would like to necessarily change anything in my life. I wish I just had the guts to do things a lot sooner and earlier than what I did.
I think mine was very similar to yours, Chris. I wouldn't change much because it all leads to where you're at now and it all leads to the present day. But I think when I probably started my career at 20 years old, when I realized I wanted to work in music, and I worked in music industry for 14 years. But then when you hear stories like Helen said, and you've got 7-year-old twins publishing a book, I think I should have done it before 20 years old. I should have been doing it at like 13, 14 or something, doing what I wanted to do. So yeah, starting early. And Anthony, anything you change?
No. I'll follow what you two have said. Is that, I mean, I lost most of my late teenage years because of serious illness with Crohn's disease. So that wasn't a particularly fun period of my life when other people were having a lot more fun around me. But it was uncategorically instrumental in the me that you see in front of you now. Before that, I was quite introvert and quite shy, and now I'm not. And if I wasn't this person, I wouldn't have the business that I have. I wouldn't have the friends that I have. I wouldn't have the house. I wouldn't have the family, and I wouldn't be talking to you guys right now.
And I mean, you just raised a serious point. Serious illness, Crohn's. If you're watching this for the first time, do Google it. Do look it up. One of my friends has got Crohn's, and I know how debilitating it can be. So definitely. So we've ended on like a really serious note there. But obviously, if you've watched anything throughout the show, we've been in for about 55 minutes. We've covered so many topics. We've covered COVID and the roadmap out of lockdown. We've covered animation. We've covered school screening visits. We've covered toxic hustle culture. 7-year-olds publishing a book. We've covered so much today. Prince Charles, Ravel Morris and the High Street. So much. So if you've got any thoughts on this, guys, do comment there on the chat function. We always like to hear your opinions. Do like it and share it. And we'll be back next Tuesday with 3 different guests to chat for several different subjects. But thanks again to Anthony. Thanks to Helen. Thanks to Chris. Really appreciated. We're going to bid you a farewell. And thanks for watching, guys. So we'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Guys.